Hello, it's Brent Schneider with Leverage and Lean, and I am excited to present Applying Lean to Computer Processes. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I graduated from UNI in 2013 with a bachelor's in management. I recently received my MBA from the University of Iowa. I'm currently employed as an application developer at the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics, currently working primarily in our EMR Epic. And the most important thing to know about me is I love Lean. So what is my Lean story? I attended ILC events in the past and learned a lot, but I started to question how this would apply to my profession. You see, I work full-time on a computer, so where does Lean fit into my work? The good news is Lean simply works. There's plenty of Lean success stories out there in a variety of different industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, even specialties like accounting and challenging areas like government. This is further evidence that Lean principles, when applied to a process, creates value. So I ask the question, why not on computers? Lean on computers looks different. In other industries, we're moving people or widgets, but on a computer, we're moving information. Our mentality when working on a computer exposes some potential issues that need to be addressed before Lean can be applied. I use 3 pillars to encompass what is holding us back when working on our computers. These can look like pitfalls, traps you can easily fall into, but I decided to call these pillars because they will help support you on your Lean journey. The first pillar is knowledge. We simply don't know enough about computers and don't spend enough time learning. Workers on the floor of a factory learn just by watching each other work on a process. This isn't possible for us working on a computer. We are smart. If we see a better way, we will do it. The more we know, the better our processes will be. Try to recall a time when you saw someone do something on a computer that you hadn't seen done before. It was an improvement from what you were currently doing. Most likely you said something like, "Oh, I wish I would have known that," and then quietly regretted how much time you wasted in the past. This event, although revealing conflicting emotions, needs to happen as often and as frequently as possible. The next pillar is standardization. This is the most important part of improvement when it comes to working on a computer. A computer exposes how inconsistent we are, and with Lean, that is a problem. A process is only visible to the user of the computer. To be on the same page, you have to bring everyone together to standardize a process and then keep each individual accountable. This will be time consuming, but can create some of those learning moments I mentioned before. The final pillar is short-term thinking. When completing a task on a computer, it is easy to fall into the mindset to sacrifice tomorrow for today. We just want to get something done as quickly as possible. This leaves us with nothing to improve on for tomorrow. It is easy to create waste on a computer, which gives us the impression that no one is impacted by it, but the customer is impacted by non-value actions in a process and will continue to be unless we eliminate it. Again, caution, be prepared to address these 3 pillars in your Lean journey when improving computer processes. They will come up in one way or another. Be prepared. To simplify things, I want to walk through applying Lean to computer processes in 3 steps: standardization, identifying value, eliminating waste, and continuous improvement. First, let's talk about standardization. Again, this is the most time-consuming and difficult step, so be prepared for the challenges that will appear in this step. Before you can work through Lean principles, you have to standardize the process. You can't just jump to eliminating waste because not everyone is following the same process. If you jump ahead, you'll end up eliminating waste that could have been eliminated naturally through standardization. Standardization is difficult because when it comes to identifying computer processes, there's simply too many. It's too easy for us to create our own way instead of working together to create the way. How many computer processes exist on your computer? Take a moment to think about that. Let me explain this with an example. Say you have 3 employees completing the same task on their computers. They all complete the task their own way. At the end of the day, the task is completed, but the process is not standardized. and waste hasn't been eliminated. Say one employee starts the process better than the others, while another one finishes the process well, maybe one then follows up in an effective way. Combine this into one standardized process and everyone benefits from these individual strengths. This seems like a daunting task because how many different versions of the same process exist on the computer? It's easy for each individual to develop their own specialized process without communicating or consulting with others. From the collection of everyone exists the standardized best practice that everyone should follow going forward. To standardize, you need to get everyone on the same page and follow the same process to complete this task. Once you feel that your team is following the standardized process every time, you can move on to the next steps. So how do you do this? Standardizing a process on a computer is eye-opening because the process only exists in everyone's mind today. For a physical process, you don't have to deal with this because everyone's working on the same floor, sees the same thing, and has a general idea of how the process works. On a computer, you have to make the process visible because it only exists in everyone's mind. To expedite things, pick someone that does the process and ask them to create steps and demo how they complete this. Ask the team if anyone does any step differently. If you do this in a meeting, people may not speak up, so you need to deal with everyone individually because they could see the process working in a different way. Who owns the standardized process? This step is overlooked but critical to long-term success. If an owner isn't identified, there will be no vehicle to foster continuous improvement. Improvement ideas will arise, but they won't be implemented consistently. Remember, ultimately the customer suffers from this. Traditionally, management takes ownership of the process. This doesn't mean that management tells everyone how to work. It means that they manage the change and ensures that all improvement ideas are properly investigated. Think of it this way. Users influence the process. Managers complete the change management. I'm sure you've heard the phrase go to Gemba. Another way to say this is go where the work is. You can go directly to someone's desk and look over their shoulder watching them complete a process. Some people are more comfortable than others with people watching them work. Typically, people don't perform well under these conditions. It might not give the right impression you're looking for. A manager on the floor of a factory is available for questions and assistance. A manager looking over someone's shoulder while they're working is a micromanager and invading someone's personal space. How can we avoid this awkwardness? I've not heard of someone do this as an alternative, but if you have the capabilities, have your staff screen record themselves completing a process. And don't have them do this just once. Have them do this 2 or 3 times so they get more comfortable with the recording happening and perform closer to how they're performing today. A collection of these videos can help you see what your staff is doing. You can overlay the steps taken across other users and find the differences that exist. Say you've worked hard to standardize a process but are hung up at a decision point. Everyone has an opinion of what to do, but someone must be a tiebreaker. First, double check and ensure you're making a lean decision, creating value or eliminating waste. Then make a strategic decision about how the organization wants to serve the customer. Do you want to be fast? Do you want to be consistent? Understanding your customer's needs can help break that tie. And remember, it takes time to standardize, and it's not easy to find the best way to complete a task. You may not get it on the first try. The next step is creating value by eliminating waste. So how do you do this on your computer? So what is value, and how do we determine what it is? It feels different when working on a computer, and it's important to remember what we're doing, what service we're providing their customers. Again, we're not moving people or widgets, we're moving information. So value to customers could be how fast, consistent, accurate, and thoughtful we move information for them. You can be entering information into the computer, sending information, manipulating it. What information does the customer really need? Are we delivering too much, too little? Let's define the value. Start thinking from the customer's perspective of how your product or service provides value to them. The next thing we have to do is identify waste so we can then eliminate it. I have some examples I'll go over for this. One waste that we can create is defects. This could be rework, where we're touching the product again after it's been completed. Scrap, we missed the mark completely. We delivered something to the customer they do not want, and no one wants the finished product, so we must throw it away or scrap it for parts. And then incorrect or missing information. Maybe you're sending information that's missing, or you delivered the wrong information. You can avoid this on your computer by standardizing and mistake proofing your processes. One example of a defect could be caused by unnecessary typing. Say you typed the wrong invoice number to a client. Typing increases the likelihood you could make this mistake. Using the clipboard and copying and pasting information is a better way to take the correct information and move it somewhere else. Here's another example. Maybe you have a conversation with a client and believe you know exactly what they're looking for, but when you deliver the final product, it misses the mark completely. Next time, if in doubt, clear up what is being asked of you so you don't waste time creating a defect. Taking 5 minutes to set clear expectations can help you avoid creating 20 minutes worth of scrap. And here's one more defect example. Say you're sending an email but forget a key piece of information that is necessary for the next person to move on with their task. This email and mistake could have been avoided with some checks in place, ensuring this email didn't leave without all the necessary information. Those checks could be in the form of a checklist, an email template, ensuring that information isn't missed. Another waste you can create on your computer is inventory. An inventory waste can look like a folder full of subfolders that make no sense and contain useless files. Just like a messy storage closet, this provides no value and no one wants to go near it. We cannot be afraid of the delete button. If something isn't useful, get it out of sight, out of mind. If files are named poorly, rename them and ensure they follow a structured approach going forward. We see plenty of evidence that 5S works, but why the hesitation to apply this on a computer? Just because it's easy to be messy doesn't mean messy should be our default. Another waste you can create on your computer is motion. Traditionally, this is the unnecessary movements by people, such as the example above where someone might be grabbing parts with all this wasted motion. When thinking about what this looks like on your computer, it might be easier to picture this as navigation instead of motion. We're simply replacing the person with an arrow, and excess motion can be identified by following the path of your cursor. Here is an example of poor navigation on your computer. Say you attempt to log into ILC's member-only site. You can navigate to the home page, follow the links that direct you to the username and password fields, but this path creates a lot of excessive motion that isn't necessary. If we plan on navigating to this page often, we should create this as a bookmark or favorite, eliminating all of that unnecessary navigation. This is a typical example, but how consistent are we navigating to settings that we use every day? Is there an easier way? Have you taken a moment to look? Another waste you can create is extra processing, and this waste is when you complete more work or higher quality work that was not required by the customer. When working on your computer, ensure you're doing only the minimum needed to meet the customer's demand. Extra processing can look like an Excel spreadsheet with all this unnecessary formatting and graphs, when really all the customer wanted was just the data. Clear expectations have not been defined, so they're being created without communicating with each other. You finished creating the product and it just needs to be delivered. Transportation waste is the unnecessary movement of products or materials being delivered to the customer. In our case, it's information from your computer to the customer. An example can be sending an email. Are you sending this information to too many people? It can be easy to CC people, but it doesn't mean that we should. Take a moment to think before you click send. Even though people may not reply to your email, it will end up in their inbox, creating a potential distraction. Another example, maybe you were trained to save a copy of the finished product to a folder. Take a moment to question who needs this. Through some simple investigation, you might find out that this isn't needed for the customer or internally. It might seem helpful to retain files for historical reference, but if there's no legal requirement for potential future audits, then chances are high that no one is reviewing these records. Another waste you can produce on your computer is overproduction, which occurs when we produce more than is needed or before it is needed. For example, say a customer informs you that they want to create a marketing ad and have a long list of thorough specifications. As the client's marketing rep, it would be tempting to get started, but until they receive a quote and pay their invoice, you should refrain from working on this. It is difficult if you are stressed and don't want to get behind on your work. Even though it feels good to get ahead, it is critical to know what the customer really wants, even if that means waiting and working on something else. Working ahead of the customer's needs can result in rework and creating too much of something that people don't want, which can turn into a disaster. Once you develop a streamlined process to handle your workload, it becomes easier to focus on what is in the pipeline and not what could potentially enter it. Another waste is waiting. The simple truth is we think faster than our computers do, which is why waiting for your computer to load can be so frustrating. The spinning circle is an opportunity for you to work on something else, but it's easy to get sidetracked. How do we avoid load time and wasted time waiting for the next step in a process? Just like a person, computers perform better when given clear and concise instructions. Only ask to do the bare minimum to achieve the task you're trying to complete. Asking too much creates unnecessary wait time. Keep in mind that waiting can be a byproduct of other ways such as navigation, overproduction, and excess processing. Eliminating waste in other areas can reduce wait time substantially. And another waste that goes unnoticed is non-utilized talent. People are the most valuable resource, but how do we ensure their gifts are being utilized? We simply don't spend enough time talking about improving processes and how we're getting our work done. Talent can be discovered when standardizing a process. You see what everyone knows and how they manage their work. Knowledge sharing can improve a process quickly. If you can get people to buy into a standardized process and show how they can impact it with their ideas, you can tap into the talent and creativity being underutilized at your organization. This is not as straightforward as creating a suggestions box. It is more a cultural change that enables your employees to drive change that impacts others around them. You need systems that capture improvement ideas and processes that investigate them. When employees are involved in this process, you create buy-in, even if their ideas are not implemented. And the final step that never ends is continuous improvement. Now, standardizing your process and eliminating waste can transform a process, making you question why this step is even necessary. Don't settle for the new standard you created. Continuous improvement drives standards higher and separates the good from the great. So how do you do this well? You can drive continuous improvement with how well you manage change. Has anything changed that needs to be reconsidered in a process? Does someone have a new improvement idea? Did a new setting become available? You now have an entire team following the same process. Giving them a venue to share their knowledge and ideas fosters a culture of continuous improvement. And no one wants to dwell on a mistake that they made, but mistakes can be used to advance continuous improvement. When a mistake happens, it should be an event that is used to challenge the broken system. At first, people may be uncomfortable being open about how they made a mistake, but when you blame the system, you create a common enemy that management and employees can fight together. So is that it? Is this all you can do to get the maximum value out of a computer process? I don't think so. Previously, I told you I love lean, which is true, but that isn't the entire picture. I also love creating macros. Around the same time I was introduced to lean, I was teaching myself how to write macros on my computer. So what is a macro? A macro is a defined sequence of code that performs a task. You determine how many things you want one macro to do. It can complete one action or many actions. You can even combine macros together to automate an entire process. The programming language I use is Visual Basic for Applications, or VBA, which is the primary coding language used in Microsoft Office applications. Macros automate the movement of information on my computer, which allows me to be consistent as I continue to find ways to program repeatable actions. The way I look at it, a computer is a machine. If we had a machine that needed to be configured for a lean project to be successful, we would update it. A computer is always a part of a lean project involving computer processes, so how do we get more out of it? Have you ever heard the saying, automation just makes your problems happen faster? My response to this is good. That in turn should speed up your solutions. So is the goal to automate everything? No, the goal isn't to automate everything. Leveraging a computer's capabilities allows you to be more efficient, but lean ensures you're being effective. Lean provides a clear direction and purpose. Serve the customer by providing value, not automate everything. Just simply deliver the most value to the customer, period. This is why lean is so powerful. It always applies to everything that we do and helps us not jump to incorrect conclusions that we must automate all processes to be successful. The macros I use help me save time. Sometimes minutes, sometimes only seconds, but those seconds add up. And this isn't just about time savings. I can use my mental capacity and energy on other things. The easier it is to move information, the more I can focus on creating value. Think about that for a moment in your job and what you do every day. You are moving information on your computer, and those that move information the best win. I started leveraging lean back in 2017, and this year I've been working on creating content and macros. It's my goal to help you be more efficient and effective on your computer, ultimately producing less clicks and more results. So share, like, follow Leverage and Lean on our social media, and be sure to subscribe to the Leverage and Lean YouTube channel where I post a new macro every Monday. I pray that Leverage and Lean can start a conversation around improving computer processes, because together we can learn and together we can be better.